Welcome everyone to Finding Pictures, What's New in the Print and Photographs Division. We've had a busy and successful 2024 working on over 15 visual material collections. In all, through cross-divisional collaboration, we processed 480,000 items, created 90,000 digital images, cataloged 60,000 items, and accessioned 45,000 items. This afternoon, we'll spotlight 5 of these collections that are newly processed and now available for research access. Division staff will introduce items from the U.S. Patent Office Advertising Prints and Labels collection submitted for registration between 1874 and 1940, foreign photojournalism, some celebrity photographs captured by David Seymour Shim from 1935 to 1956, fine prints created by more than 1,000 artists associated with the Robert Blackburn Printmaking Workshop in New York from 1948 to 1999, photographs by Bruce Talaman as part of the historic 1983 to 1984 presidential campaign of Jesse Jackson, and aviation photographs by Joe McNally for the first and only born digital National Geographic story in 2003 capturing the future of flying. Please allow me to introduce Maggie, Sam, Tori, Leah, Eric, and Taryn, who will take you on a journey through these 5 collections. Take it away, Maggie.
Cool. There we go. Delightful. Hi, I'm Maggie McCready, an archivist here in P&P, and I'll be talking today about the U.S. Patent Office Advertising Prints and Labels collection, which was processed by Jenny Orm and Eliza Scally. Today, we'll cover the scope of the collection strengths, resources for research, and how to access it. Next slide. The collection is made up of roughly 67,000 commercial prints and labels submitted to the Patent Office for registration between 1874 and 1940. To register a print or label with the Patent Office, companies had to submit a physical example of it along with the application, which is why we have so many packaging, posters, ephemera, cards, cigarette cards, cardboard cutouts, and more from so many different brands and companies in the collection. Our collection is made up of 4 series: the volumes of registered prints and labels, registered labels, registered prints, unregistered prints and labels, and that's that. Cool. Next slide. Let's get into some of the collection strengths. We'll talk about all of the wonderful artists in the collection. We'll go into some common brands, and we'll also talk about products and historic trends. Next slide. We have so many wonderful artists in the collection. For the next 2 slides, I will attempt to provide a sample of some of their amazing work. Starting with on the left, we have this beautiful Saturday Evening Post cover by Norman Rockwell. We have a few of his early ads as well. In the center, we have this really cool ad by Maxfield Parrish. We have a couple other pieces by him. And on the right, we have one of several works by J.C. Leyendecker. Next slide. Okay, on the left here, we have this beautiful Art Deco ad by Erte, and we have a few of his for Hole Proof Hosiery. In the center, we are so lucky to have, this is one of 4 Alphonse Mucha box labels for soap, and they are just gorgeous. Holy cow. On the right, we have this beautiful ad for emulsified coconut oil by Coles Phillips, and we have a few works by him as well. Next slide. We also have many copies of ads from particular brands, and for the next 2 slides, I'll show you the brands we have the most works for. On the left, we have one of many several cream of wheat ads by Edward Brewer. In the center, we have a Prince Albert tobacco ad by the cartoonist Rube Goldberg. And on the right, we have one of many Camel ads in the collection. This one's by Pruitt Carter. Next slide. On the left, we have a super cute Jell-O ad by Rose Cecil O'Neill, who's the creator of the Kewpies. In the center, a beautiful palm olive ad by Rolf Armstrong. And on the right, we have a Heinz peanut butter ad by Maud Taussey Fangel. And we have every Heinz ad for every product they ever possibly conceived of or considered selling. This is just one of them. So we have more if you want to see them. Next slide. Commercial artwork and product labels were created to appeal to the general population in order to sell a product. Because ads try to appeal to the masses, those ads often reflect societal interests and opinions about various moments in history. So, for example, on the left, we have this early 1920s palm olive ad by Nasa Moran McMain, which features an Egyptian sarcophagus. If you'll remember, I believe it was 1922 is when they rediscovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, which generated all this Egyptomania and interest in ancient Egyptian motifs, which you see manifesting here in this palm olive ad. In the center, we have a Prohibition era ad for Mahan's virgin fruit juices, which gives you the exact instructions for how to not store this so that it does not ferment and does not become alcohol, because that is illegal, wink, wink. And on the right, we have this really cool lipstick sampler with actual lipsticks in it from the 1930s that just show you the kind of colors that they were popular at the time. And it's really cool if you're interested in like living history or vintage fashion. And we have a few other cosmetic samples in the collection too. Next slide. All right, so let's say you've seen something cool in the collection and you want to learn more about it. What do you do? Next slide. Okay, so every item in the collection was assigned a registration or serial number by the patent office, and that's how the collection is controlled. That's how you request stuff. So if you don't know that number, a registration number, or you want to search by subject or brand, you should start with the Patent Office Gazette. And here's a screenshot of what the Gazette looks like when you're pulling it up. You can access it on the Hein Online database if you're here at the library, or at the HathiTrust database anywhere online. Remember that this only contains information on registered prints and labels, and we'll cover some resources for the unregistered materials next. Next slide. Cool. So the entire collection is microfilmed. The microfilm has the most complete documentation of the registered prints and labels from 1874 to 1940, and includes unregistered prints and labels from 1926 to 1940. The microfilm is the cool. The microfilm is the only way to get brand, product, company name, and other contextual documentation of the unregistered prints and labels. Here are pictures of what kind of documents are contained in the microfilm. You have the application form, which is the biggest one. On the right, we have correspondence between the applicant and the patent office, and a reproduction of the label that was applied to register. You can access the microfilm at the microfilm reading room in the Jefferson Building, or for the unregistered microfilm, it's been digitized and is available online. That link has been put in the chat. And so now you can subject search that to your heart's content. Next slide. The Patent Office record books are 6 sets of volumes in the Copyright Division at the Library of Congress that document various aspects of the registration process for labels and prints in the collection. This includes records of the application and registration process of the prints and labels, certificates of registration, blah, 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 blah. It's a really great resource if you want to know about the internal workings of the Patent Office and how they documented their process of registering something. And you can get that right here at the Library of Congress in the Copyright Division. Next slide. The Artist Name Index is a list of over 330 Golden Age illustrators and cartoonists with works present in the collection, included as an index in the finding aid created by library staff. Basically, when we processed the collection and were able to identify an artist, we recorded that name along with that item in the item level container list. So you can Control F search for an artist's name and find all the works we have by them. We couldn't identify literally every work by every artist, so the list isn't comprehensive or exhaustive, but I still think it's a pretty great place to start if you decide, ooh, I want to see every work by Peter Arno. So you can just Control F search. There you go. Great resource. Next slide. The Annual of Advertising Art is a series of exhibition catalogs published by the Art Directors Club starting in 1921 that highlighted the best of commercial artwork. And some of the works in the catalogs actually overlap with those in the collection. Demonstrating that, I have a picture of the cover of the 1921 annual, and on the right is a page from within that has two works by Charles Edward Chambers and Walter Biggs, with some additional information about the advertiser, advertising firm, company, and the product, and if it won an award that year in the exhibit. But we actually have both of those pieces in color in the collection. And you can see that in the item level container list on the left here. I've got a screenshot. In the notes field, we've got both the artist names, their registration number, and it has a note confirmed with the Annual of Advertising Art. So if you see that in the container list, you know that there's more information about that piece in the annual, which is really great. They're also just a super fun browse. The artwork in there is gorgeous. The Annuals of Advertising Art are not at the library, but scans of them are available through the Art Directors Club website, and I think the link is in the chat for that. Excellent browse. Next slide. And finally, if I've convinced you to be interested in using this collection, you've got some options for accessing it. You can access it first through the EAD finding aid, which has an item level container list with registration or serial number, extent, and notes. There's also a lot of additional guides that I wrote up in there to help you out. Just a heads up, the entire collection is stored offsite, so you'll have to make a request in advance to see the collection. We also have the guide record in our catalog, which is basically the top level summary of everything you need to know about the collection. A LibGuide with more detailed instructions and pictures is coming soon. Or if any of the images you saw in this PowerPoint and many more piqued your interest, you can actually just browse them, a selection of digitized images from the collection in our catalog by keyword searching USPO. And that's all for me. Thanks. I'm going to hand it off now to Tori and Sam.
Thank you, Maggie. So hello, everyone. I'm Tori, and this afternoon, Sam and I are here to provide a brief introduction to the David Seymour Shim photograph collection. While this is the smallest collection that will be discussed today, Shim's work contributes meaningfully to PNP's holdings relating to international photojournalism. Providing a human lens to major world events, Shim's clear connection to his subjects highlights the human impact of the events he photographed. His work also helps us to see the joy in small moments, like in this image of a Budapest policewoman surrounded by children at what the donor described as a policewoman's home for girls, which was taken in 1948. Next slide, please. To begin, let me give you a little background on David Seymour, or as he is better known, Shim. Shim was born in Warsaw in 1911. He made his career as a photojournalist and today is among the most widely recognized photojournalists in history. Shim co-founded Magnum Photos, where he worked with other renowned photographers such as Robert Capa and Henri Cartier-Bresson. He is famous for his coverage of important historical events, especially the Spanish Civil War and the lead up to and aftermath of World War II. Here you see him with 3 cameras hanging around his neck because he never wanted to run out of film and miss a great photo. Next slide, please. Before diving into examples of Shim's work, let me tell you how we acquired this collection and what it contains. The David Seymour Shim Photograph Collection, as it is officially known, came to the library in several different accessions in 2014, 2023, and early this year. Each accession was acquired as a gift donated by Shim's nephew, Mr. Ben Schneiderman, who maintains the family archive. Spanning from 1935 to 1956, there are a total of 1,095 photographic prints in the collection, all but 2 of which are black and white gelatin silver prints. The 2 color prints shown here are portraits of Ingrid Bergman and renowned opera singer Maria Callas, who is also featured in the recent film starring Angelina Jolie. The collection has been processed into 1 lot with 2 subdivisions related to the 2 major categories of Shim's work: foreign photojournalism and portraits of celebrities and personalities. So let's take a closer look at how those themes are represented in Shim's work. Next slide. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, Shim is perhaps best known for his documentation of the Spanish Civil War. However, more than simply documenting events, it is the special attention to the human impact, as well as a particular focus on children during these times in history that gives Shim's photography such a special quality. Here are just 2 examples of that work: a group of miners on strike, where the image really captures the facial expressions and emotion of the people in the photograph, and an image of 3 young boys standing by stacks of ammunition during the Spanish Civil War. The juxtaposition of young children and war weapons highlights Shim's focus on the human impact of war and other historical events. Next slide. Shim is also well known for his portraits of celebrities. On the left, an example again of actress Ingrid Bergman and her husband, film director Roberto Rossellini. Even here, you can see Shim's talent for capturing children and tender moments between family members. On the right, we have a portrait of Pablo Picasso. I particularly like this image because it wraps several of the main themes of Shim's work into 1 photograph. You have the portrait of Picasso himself, representing Shim's work with well-known individuals, and Picasso's painting Guernica is visible in the background, a painting which depicts the aftermath of the bombing of the Spanish town during the Spanish Civil War. Now I'll hand it over to Sam to tell you more about how we process the collection and how it can be accessed.
Thank you, Tori. Next slide, please. Now that you've gotten an introduction to Shim and the breadth of historical subjects covered by this collection, I'm here to tell you a bit about how it was processed and the best ways to access it. You can find an overview of the collection and details about its arrangement and description by searching the call number in the Prints and Photographs online catalog. This will bring you to the lot record or overall description of the collection. Next slide, please. When you search the call number, in addition to finding the lot record at the top, where it says groups of images, you will also find over 1,000 item level records, as the photographic prints in this collection have been comprehensively scanned and cataloged. Item level access to this collection is exciting for a variety of reasons. The high resolution scans allow for close inspection of the image, while the transcribed captions, donor-provided titles, and subject indexing provide a deeper look into the major themes of Shim's work. Next slide. This is an example of an item level record, once again, of the policewoman surrounded by children. You'll see that the transcribed caption, likely written by Shim himself, gives a bit more insight into Magda and her relationship with the children. The addition of subject headings helps ensure that this image could be found by someone interested in Hungary, children, or policewomen in the 1940s. This collection is rights restricted, so you'll have to visit us on site to be able to see and download the high resolution scans. Without getting too in the weeds, at the library we use a cataloging standard called MARC, which stands for Machine Readable Cataloging Record. At the bottom of the item level record, you can see a link that allows you to view the underlying MARC record. Next slide, please. This is part of the MARC record. In the column on the left, you can see numbered tags, which represent MARC fields like the title, date, extent, subject, etc. For some more information about MARC, you can see the link in the chat. Next, I want to talk about the process we use to batch catalog the 1,000+ prints in this collection. Next slide. Rather than create 1,000 individual catalog records, we were able to streamline the process by utilizing an existing workflow for batch cataloging using a program called MarcEdit. This process began with creating a template for data entry in Excel. As you can see, each column represents a mark field for the catalog record. Next slide, please. After exporting the Excel template, we mapped the columns to their respective mark fields, which you can see in the middle screenshot. After the mapping is complete, a mark file is created, which you can see in the screenshot on the right. At this stage, we are able to add standard fields in bulk to all records. Once this process is done, all the records can be uploaded to the online catalog at once. Next slide, please. To wrap up, I just wanted to highlight some gems from the collection. A hallmark of Shim's work is human connection, both with the photographer and with the world around them. Here are two of our favorite images from the collection. On the left is an image taken in Italy in the aftermath sometime after World War II, showing a little girl and her well-loved doll. On the right is actress Francoise Sagan with her dog and protector. For more information on Shim, we've added a link in the chat to a talk given last year by Shim's nephew, Mr. Schneiderman. Next slide, please. With a quick goodbye from Elif Turia and his new shoes, we'll now turn it over to Leah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam and Tori. My name is Leah Rios, and I'm an archivist in the Princeton Photographs Division. Today, I'll be giving you a brief overview of the Robert Blackburn Printmaking Workshop print collection. Special thanks to former technician Aaron Ebert, who processed the collection. Next slide. This collection features over 2,000 fine prints created by more than 1,000 artists associated with the Blackburn Printmaking Workshop in New York, spanning the years 1948 to 1999. It highlights a substantial body of Robert Blackburn's own work alongside prints by contemporary artists, including notable African American and Latino printmakers. The collection also showcases works by Blackburn's collaborators, students, and personal friends, offering insight into the contributions of both prominent and lesser-known artists. Next slide. Robert Hamilton Blackburn was born in 1920 and was an influential African-American artist, teacher, and master printmaker. Born in New Jersey and raised in Harlem, Blackburn began his artistic journey at Frederick Douglass Junior High, graduating in 1936. He continued to hone his craft at the Harlem Arts Workshops and the Harlem Arts Community Center. In 1947, Blackburn founded the Printmaking Workshop, a collaborative space that grew into a hub for artists from diverse backgrounds. A master lithographer, he served as the first master printer at Universal Limited Art Editions, working with renowned artists such as Jasper Johns and Robert Rauschenberg. Blackburn also taught at several institutions and received numerous accolades, including the prestigious MacArthur Fellowship in 1992. Although the printmaking workshop closed in 2002, 1 year before he passed away in 2003, it was successfully revived in 2005 under the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts, ensuing Blackburn's legacy continues to inspire future generations. Next slide. Printmaking, as is illustrated in this insightful graphic from Crown Point Press, can be categorized into 4 primary mechanical methods: relief, intaglio, planographic, and stencil. The first two, relief and intaglio, rely on 3-dimensional matrices to create the image, while planographic and stencil processes utilize flat 2-dimensional matrices. Lastly, electrostatic printing differs from the other 4 processes as it is done electronically. For this presentation, I'll be focusing on the first 4 printing methods. This collection highlights a diverse array of techniques with an emphasis on intaglio prints, lithographs, and woodcuts, alongside other methods inspired by these 4 foundational processes. Next slide. Now I'd like to delve a bit deeper into the different types of printmaking. Let's start with lithography. This first piece, Girl in Red by Robert Blackburn, is one of his most iconic works. Many of you might recognize it from the library's exhibition posters back in 2003. Lithography is a process in which artists draw directly onto a flat stone surface using a greasy medium. The stone is then treated with a chemical solution that ensures ink adheres only to the drawn areas, while the untreated areas repel the ink. This technique also allows for a wide range of tones and styles. Lithographs can vary significantly. Some are highly controlled, while others have a looser, more painterly quality, like the one to the right by Michael Platt. Next slide. Next, we have woodcuts, one of the oldest and most distinctive printmaking techniques. This process involves carving an image into a block of wood with the raised surfaces inked and then pressed onto paper. Woodcut prints are known for their striking contrast between light and dark, which give them a unique texture and bold character. You can see these contrasts beautifully illustrated in this comparison between prints by Michael Kelly Williams and Robert Blackburn. Both showcase distinct variations in color and texture, highlighting the versatility of the woodcut technique. Next. Next is screen printing. Demonstrated here with these two examples, one created by the workshop and another by Antonio Martorell. This method involves pushing ink through a fine mesh screen onto a surface with stencils blocking out areas where ink isn't applied. Screen printing is renowned for its ability to produce vibrant colors and bold designs, as beautifully exemplified in Martorell's piece. This technique is widely used for posters, textiles, and fine art prints. Many are familiar with its use in Andy Warhol's iconic works, which popularized the medium further. Screen printing also allows for crisp, clean lines, a quality you can see clearly in these two prints. Next. Next, we have intaglio, a technique where the image is incised onto a metal plate, typically copper or zinc. Unlike lithography, which relies on a flat stone surface, intaglio works by engraving or etching into the plate. Ink is then applied, filling the incised lines while the surface of the plate is wiped clean. This method is prized for its ability to produce fine detail and rich texture. Take, for example, the two prints titled Composing and Of the Snake. Both showcase the sharp, precise line work achievable with intaglio, resembling the finesse of a fine pencil rather than the broad strokes of a paintbrush. Next. Lastly, let's discuss mixed media. Mixed media printmaking combines multiple print techniques and materials to create unique layered artworks. Artists often blend elements of intaglio, lithography, and screen printing, merging traditional and contemporary approaches. By incorporating materials like fabric, paper, or even found objects, mixed media offers endless creative possibilities. While some pieces may resemble collage, such as these works by Juan Sanchez, this isn't always the case. Mixed media allows artists to explore a variety of mediums, breaking away from the limitations of a single technique to craft truly innovative pieces. Next slide. The Blackburn Collection encompasses a diverse range of social, political, and cultural narratives, showcasing works that prominently feature the voices of minority communities, including Native Americans, Mexican Americans, and African Americans. Artists represented in the collection include Candida Alvarez, Kay Walkingstick, Elizabeth Catlett, Camille Phillips, Juan Sanchez, Faith Ringgold, and Willie Birch, among others. These artists harness the power of printmaking to share the unique perspectives, shedding light on the complexities of their histories, experiences, and identities. Their work serves as a testament to the medium's ability to convey powerful messages and foster deeper understanding across cultures. Next slide. This collection is significant because it provides an opportunity for individuals to see themselves represented in works both by renowned and emerging artists. It offers a wide range of perspectives, reflecting the workshop's welcoming culture and openness to anyone interested in creating prints. Pictured here are works by two African-American artists, Jacob Lawrence and Willie Birch, whose contributions exemplify the diversity and richness of the Blackburn printmaking workshop. Next slide. Public access to the collection is facilitated through detailed item records, with the collection record providing a comprehensive overview of the workshop's holdings. All materials are available for on-site viewing, though some items do require an appointment. Pictured here is a screenshot of the collection record as it appears online. The link will also be shared in the chat. The process portion of the collection includes 2,170 prints, including 35 portfolios and 13 casebooks, each with its own individual item record. Prints and portfolios are cataloged under the call number prefix FP3-RBPW, while casebooks are organized within the case filing series. Next slide. While this collection is not fully digitized, approximately 300 items are available online with item records created for all materials. On the right, you can see an overview gallery showcasing a small selection of the digitized images, along with a view of how records appear in our search bar and a list view on the left. To search the collection, you can use the prefix FP3-RBPW or just simply RBPW for short. Both will help you locate individual items efficiently. Next slide. Unlike other collections, this one has two distinct rights statements. So there's one for Robert Blackburn's own works and another for pieces by various other artists. While many of these works remain copyright restricted, we recommend contacting the artists or their estates directly to obtain image permissions. Next slide. If you'd like to delve deeper into printmaking techniques, we recommend exploring the Prints and Photographs online resource titled Printmaking Processes, a Bibliography. This resource includes glossaries, guides, and videos that offer valuable insights into various printmaking methods. We'll provide the link in our chat for easy access. Next slide. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this brief glimpse into the collection and feel inspired to explore it further online and in person when you have the opportunity. Now I'll be passing it off to Eric. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Hello, my name is Eric Pike, and I'll be sharing with you today the recently processed Jesse Jackson's 1984 Presidential Campaign Collection. Next slide, please. This collection features almost 20,000 items created by photographer and photojournalist Bruce Talman. This collection documents Jesse Jackson's campaign for President of the United States between 1983 and 1984, and provides a behind-the-scenes look of Jackson's presidential campaign. The collection is primarily color slides and photographic prints, but does include a variety of other formats. The collection is unique in that Bruce was sent by Time magazine to photograph and travel with Jesse Jackson through the entirety of the campaign. The collection provides candid views of campaign events, such as the one seen here, with the photographer Bruce Talman and Jesse Jackson together. Next slide, please. The collection possesses historical significance and in-depth research potential, not just of Jesse Jackson, but presidential campaigns and the workings of a photojournalist and Time magazine. Researchers can expect to see numerous images of Jackson, an ordained minister and important civil rights activist. His legacy of activism work includes participating in the Selma and Montgomery marches with Martin Luther King Jr., founding the National Rainbow Coalition and PUSH organization, and later serving as a representative for the District of Columbia. Jackson was seen as one of the first viable African-American candidates for president of the United States after Shirley Chisholm, and this collection documents his campaign as an important moment in American politics. Bruce captured many historic moments of the campaign, like Jackson's announcement seeking the Democratic nomination in DC, seen here. Next slide, please. Jackson's campaign for political and social reform resonated with many voters, including those referred to as the locked out. Researchers can expect to see many of Bruce's photographs capturing the multiracial and multicultural groups supporting Jackson and his efforts to address the needs of historically disadvantaged voters. His campaign message of bringing relief, benefits, access to social programs and jobs made him a popular yet polarizing candidate. Jackson had no other comparable political candidate at the time, and photographs in the collection reflect this, and his campaign efforts, such as creative disco club voter registration drives, and staying overnight in various families' homes during the campaign to advocate for public support and votes. Next slide, please. Jackson's campaign faced major challenges and setbacks. This was due to many factors, including a waning of support from prominent members of the African-American community, his political stances, and controversial events along the campaign trail. This combination ultimately resulted in Jackson failing to achieve the Democratic nomination. The collection includes many scenes beyond the lively campaign rallies and speeches he was known for, but the quiet moments away from the press and crowds. Scenes like this are a credit to Bruce and his constant presence documenting the daily activities of Jackson's campaign. Next slide, please. Bruce's photographs include sobering shots of reality in which Jackson faced potential physical harm while on the campaign trail, including pictures here of Jackson's bulletproof vest. Secret Service details were very common, and also moments with his family. Next slide, please. Another important part of this collection is Bruce's documentation of scenes of the campaign featuring other African-American journalists sent to cover Jackson for the press. Jackson's 1984 political campaign was important in having African-American journalists reporting on a presidential campaign candidate. Being selected for candidate coverage was an esteemed posting in the press world, and their work on the Jackson campaign provided professional opportunity and exposure. Many African-American journalists were sent to meet and report on Jackson, and this included individuals such as Gerald M. Boyd, the gentleman in glasses on the right, seen here accompanying Jackson and other reporters. Boyd would go on to become the first African-American managing editor of the New York Times. Next slide, please. Accompanying these scenes and rather unique to the collection are annotated time processing envelopes. These annotated envelopes often provide context and detail of subjects depicted in the collection, the operations of Time magazine, and photojournalists on the job. This information often includes a unique Time magazine job number of rolls of film used, dates, locations, and even Bruce's camera settings or the film type he used for the day. The annotations on the envelopes include descriptive details that can be brief or extremely detailed. Some envelopes may include merely a single line, as seen here on the left, while others go into great depth, listing a variety of subject matter that varies from role to role within each job, seen here on the right. Matching the job numbers to the envelopes often provides much needed information to identify individuals and the subjects photographed. Next slide, please. An example here shows scenes from one such job. This job included scenes of a plane ride with author and African-American political scholar Ron Walters, with Jesse Jackson, alongside activists and Jackson's press secretary, Frank Watkins, as well as a crowd of supporters in Baltimore. Researchers will often find related images within each job, depending on the day's travels. Topics and subjects, though, may vary drastically and show just how chaotic and exhaustive campaign travel can be, such as going through multiple states and cities in one day. Next slide, please. Accessing and viewing the collection is possible through the Prints and Photographs online catalog. The collection guide and lot record will provide an overview of the collection and its arrangement, as well as a selection of digitized content. While the material is currently rights restricted, a representative sample of more than 100 individual items have been scanned and cataloged by library staff and are accessible via individual item records. A search in the Prints and Photographs catalog with the collection title, call number, or photographer name will bring up the digitized items. Next slide, please. A prepared finding aid provides a detailed account of all the item numbered collection material and their associated time job numbers. The finding aid allows anyone to cross-reference the material in the collection with the processing envelopes and locate all corresponding material in all formats. Some content may have multiple job numbers and multiple formats, so it's a great collection for researchers who like connecting the dots. Next slide, please. I hope that you have found this collection an intriguing opportunity for research and see the value and the possibilities it can provide. Through Bruce's photographs and his dedication while on the campaign trail, this collection documents a historic event in history and represents a lot to many. Thank you, and I'll pass it off to Taryn.
Thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone. My name is Taryn Olette, and I'm a digital library specialist here. Today, I'm going to show you all a brief peek into the Joe McNally Future of Flying Photograph Collection here in the Prints and Photographs division. It was one of the first all-digital collections that the division acquired. Before this particular collection was received, right on the heels of 9/11, Prints and Photographs acquired various born digital photographic collections, often documenting the events and aftermath of the 9/11 tragedy. This collection, mainly shot in 2002 to 2003, was a departure from that subject. Joe is still very active in his field, even offering photography workshops all around the world. His subjects include commercial and editorial work in everything from fashion to sports and, you guessed it, aviation. He is known for being adventurous and technologically savvy, earning himself the prestigious role as Nikon ambassador and being published numerous times in magazines such as Life and National Geographic. It's no surprise then that this image here is actually a self-portrait of Joe high above the ground, riding along in an aerobatic plane in 2002. Anything to get the shot. Next slide. So let's take a look at more of the collection. The Library of Congress acquired 7,182 born digital photographs of Joe's back in 2007. This collection of images was shot for a 2003 cover story of National Geographic magazine, shown on the left, all about the past, present, and future of aviation. It was called The Future of Flying Faster, Farther, Smarter. The exciting part of this is that it was the first ever all-digital story shot for National Geographic. Joe's website says, quote, "One of the best barometers of the impact of the story was that most of the take was acquired by the Library of Congress. The curators there felt it was an important continuum in the visual history of aviation they have maintained since the days of the Wright brothers," end quote. All 7,182 of these images are available on site for viewing, including 100 of them in the public domain. The image on the right was likely the candidate for the front cover image. Next slide. So speaking of those 7,000 plus images, here is a run of images he shot while shooting that self-portrait from the first slide. There were 195 images dedicated to this scene alone. It was hard to pick one. It made me dizzy looking through them, but I'm pretty sure he had a harder time than I did. The interesting part, however, is that shooting fully digital meant that he could shoot less in the long run. Another quote from Joe. Partly because of the nature of the story, and partly because of digital's instant confirmation, I actually shot far fewer frames than I have for National Geographic stories in the past. Your average geographic story for me has consumed between 500 and 800 rolls of 36 exposure, 35mm film. For this story, I think the final output was about 7,500 pictures. That's the equivalent of just over a couple hundred rolls, end quote. Next slide. Joe spent a lot of time photographing military activities, both in the air and on the ground. The image on the left shows an F-22 in a test flight after being refueled midair above the Sierra Nevada mountain range. And the image on the right shows cutting-edge technology at the time for the military's UAV, or the Unmanned Aerial Vehicle, a technology that would ensure no casualties if under attack. Next slide. He also spent a lot of time photographing work and recreational activities aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln Navy supercarrier. Not shown here are the hundreds of photos taken by Joe of what he captions as, quote, "Diversions are a crucial component to staying sane during long tours on an aircraft carrier," end quote. This included everything from playing video games to singing karaoke in their time off from the grueling work on the ship. Joe is very adept at showing what could be considered mundane activities as visually stimulating images. Next slide, please. To achieve so many unique images and points of view, he employs various photographic techniques like a fisheye lens seen in both these images and a remote shutter as seen on the right to again catch himself in the action. The one on the left uses a fisheye lens to capture what might have had to be a panoramic image to show both planes. And on the right, it mimics what a person in an ultralight aircraft might actually be seen in the air. Next slide. In addition to using the latest technology in his own photographic work, he also documented the aviation testing happening in the field at the time. The left image shows a test pilot wearing night vision goggles, producing a strange red glow that truly catches your eye. And the right image shows a person bundled up in winter gear next to an aircraft being exposed to a vast number of temperatures, from -65 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, in the McKinley Climatic Laboratory located in a very unexpected place, Florida. Next slide. And his work definitely doesn't stop there. He also followed the commercial aviation industry. The images on the left and bottom right remind us that these were taken shortly after 9/11.
They show airline companies that don't even exist anymore, like US Airways before it merged with American Airlines, and Metrojet, which actually folded in December of 2001, more than 1 year after these images were taken. It truly shows just how stagnant the economy had become. Next slide. He shows another creatively taken side of the commercial industry in the simulator cockpit of a Boeing 737 on the left. And on the right, Joe, ever the daredevil, rides in the rear slot of a Blue Angels aerobatic plane, in a view rarely seen by anyone not in the famous Navy squadron. Two images that truly make the viewer feel as if they are the ones in the driver's seat, or in this case, the cockpit. Next slide. Another of Joe's images, shown here and featured in the Wings of Change Digital Takes Flight article, shows his unique ability to capture any scene in a dramatic and often beautiful way. He's quoted in the same article. I applied the same philosophy to the story that I've always employed shooting transparency film. When a picture comes out of the camera, it's the way I want it to be. Next slide. When the division acquired the McNally collection in 2007, Joe asked that 100 of the 7,000 plus images be put in the public domain. These are high-resolution TIFF files available for download. The other images have copyright restrictions, and their larger images only display at the library. See the screenshot on the left for the Future of Flying guide record. One convenient feature, both for this collection and many other Born Digital collections at the library, is that all of the metadata for these images remain intact in the image files themselves. When processing them, we keep all data down to the highly technical details that the camera provides. This data is available in the records and in the downloadable images as well. Most of the time, his captions are very detailed and specific, naming models of planes and explaining various aviation and military terms, a feature I really appreciated when sorting through his images as a layman in the field. See the screenshot on the right, outlined in orange, for an example of one of these captions. Next slide. And to round out this look at the collection, I wanted to share two of my favorite images. They are both taken in what I would imagine to be loud and chaotic places. The one on the left taken on the deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln, and the one on the right of giant cargo plane propellers being worked on. And yet he still somehow creates these quiet and elegant moments in time. Thank you.
So, thanks everyone for your great presentations. Just want to let everyone now know that we are free to take questions about any of the material we just covered. And we do actually already have one in the Q&A feature. This is from Matt, and this question would be for Tori and Sam. And it's, why is David Seymour known as Shim?
It's a great question. So actually, Shim's original last name, it's Polish and my pronunciation might not be great, but it's Shimin. So it was a reference to his last name.
If I may, I'm going to throw a question out to Maggie. So we saw some really interesting materials from the Patent Office collection, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about some of the more unique or unusual things that you've discovered there.
Oh golly, what haven't we discovered? Um, so to list off some of the weirdest formats, we've gotten like bleach powder for peroxide blondes from the 1920s. We have acrylic nails. We have tooth x-rays, cigarettes, honeycomb. We did create surrogates and discard the honeycomb. We have games like crossword puzzles or like little scratch offs. Golly, there's Volvels. There's something really weird that I'm gonna forget, that I'm gonna miss mentioning, but I hope that that is demonstrative of like the range of really weird nonsense that we found in the collection. Oh, boxes of laxatives too. That's been neat. Um, yeah, a lot of weird things.
Okay, we have a number coming in through Q&A now. Everyone keep them coming. I'm going to go to this question from Eliza, and this opens up to everyone who presented. What were some of the processing challenges and surprises you experienced while working on this wide variety of materials?
I'll jump in. My collection wasn't for Blackburn wasn't that complicated, but the one difficult part was just some of the prints were very, very large. And so if you spoke to Erin too, we had to just kind of team up and um always be together while lifting the prints. So we had to be very careful because of that issue. But other than that, ours was pretty straightforward. So just for us was the size.
I can jump in for the digital part. We usually don't have quite as big collections come in all at once like this. So when we had McNally's collection, we kind of had it waiting, and there were the 7,000 plus images to be worked on at once. And generally, not always the case, of course, generally we have more of a continuing basis of digital images coming in. So that was a little bit different for me, having to deal with the really big collection all at once.
I would say for patent office, it was all the weird stuff that I mentioned, of like, oh God, what do we do with this? Like, how do we make sure that we document that someone submitted cigarettes and that they have a name signed on them? Or like, how do you store acrylic nails in a way that makes sense? But it was also, figuring out how to quickly dedupe the collection. The collection was originally 190,000 items, and we deduped it down to 67,000. Sometimes people submitted as many as 42 copies of the same thing in their application. So that took a bit. But yeah, a lot of weird stuff and also just a lot of stuff to sort through.
Hey, I'm going to go to the next question, and I actually might jump in here on this one. It says, do you have collections for other Magnum photographers? And the short answer I can tell you is yes, we do. You can search Magnum photos in our Prints and Photographs online catalog and see lots of other Magnum photographers in addition to David Seymour Shim, like Cartier-Bresson, Robert Capa, and many others in our collection. So next question is about cataloging. Someone asks, I see you used MarcEdit to batch load photo records. Did you catalog in Excel or did records come from the estate? I think that might be for Tori and Sam.
Yeah, so I can answer that, and Sam can feel free to jump into if you have more to say. So yes, we cataloged into Excel in that we created an Excel template, which is imported into that MarcEdit software that Sam was describing, which is then uploaded into our Voyager cataloging system, which
Oh no.
the records in their final form didn't come directly from the estate. However, we did have item level inventories from the donor, Mr. Ben Schneiderman, which gave us titles and date information that we used in our catalog records.
This next question may have already been partially been answered, but a follow-up. Can someone explain more in depth the batch cataloging and digitization tools and softwares?
Sure. So we were very lucky to rely on the help of some of our catalogers who were more familiar with the software and who had used it before. And thankfully, it was relatively user-friendly once you're used to it. So it's a program called MarcEdit. And unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the gentleman who created it, but it's open source, which is really nice. And so you really are just manually saying, okay, field 1, that is the title, which will become, for those familiar with Marc, the 245 field. And you do that mapping for each of the things in your spreadsheet. And that's really the only tool that we use outside of our normal cataloging software, which Tori mentioned, which was Voyager, which I believe is specific to us. And yeah, and if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out and we can include our catalogers' expertise on that process.
Thank you, Sam. I'm seeing one last question that came in through the chat, and I think this is going to be for Maggie. It reads, I read that the U.S. Patent Office has now digitized the patent application process thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. Will that make your job easier at the Library of Congress?
That is a good question. So this collection came in directly from the Patent Office as one unit in the 1980s. And that was a one-off. We don't have current plans or expectations to get more stuff from the Patent Office because of stuff with these are largely or often considered government records, which normally wouldn't have been saved. So it's a miracle that we have them. They have like a records disposition schedule usually. So I don't know, and I don't believe that we have plans to add more to the Patent Office collection. Honestly, digital doesn't necessarily make it easier because that's still a lot of stuff to sort through. But yeah, we do have the Library of Congress copyright division also accepts things digitally. And we do have some of that we've started to preserve. But I don't work with anything digital, so that's totally out of my wheelhouse. But I mean, worth considering if we do end up getting more.
Thank you, Maggie. And this is a great question to end on that I'm getting through the chat, which is, thank you for answering my questions. How should I get in contact with you to discuss cataloging or anything else for that matter further? And I'm going to suggest that if anyone has follow-up questions or if you would like a copy of today's slides with chat links included, please contact us through Ask a Librarian and someone in our staff will be put in touch with you. So thank you to everyone today. And one final note, please join us again in February for our next Finding Pictures presentation, which I believe will be on World War I oddities. Thank you to all the presenters for your work today. And as you leave the Zoom webinar today, please take a moment to fill out our survey. We really take a close look at those answers and it helps us plan what we will give presentations on in the future.